Hello math students, my name is Matthew Williams, and today I'm going to show you how to factor using the quadratic formula. So this is often the method that's used to factor quadratics when you can't use the other methods, whether it be square roots, graphing, completing the square, or guess and check, and standard factoring. Basically, you can think of all of these methods as shortcuts that only work in specific situations. The quadratic formula will work in 100%. So you're probably wondering, how do we do it? Well, it's just you follow a formula pretty much. And there's a handy jingle to remember this formula. And it's to the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel. First, you take the opposite of b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I apologize for my mediocre singing, but I wasn't completely trying. I don't think most of us are, and that's okay. So another thing you need to remember before you start these problems is that you don't need to be frightened when your answers don't come out as whole numbers. The whole point of the quadratic formula is to solve equations that, you can't really solve any other way. So that will cause most of your answers to not become whole numbers. We are going to do some practice problems. You guys excited? Alright, so for this first practice problem, we're going to rewrite the quadratic formula just as a review. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And so what we're going to do here is the opposite of b, so the opposite of 8, negative 8, plus or minus 8 squared minus 4, negative 4, and 3. So 2, negative 4. Now we just have to do a bunch of multiplication. So we've got 64. So 4 times negative 4 is 16, and 16 times 3 is 48. So that means 64 plus 48 So that means that it comes out as 112. Now, we're not leaving this as it is. We are going to simplify the radical. So, you could do this. It's much easier to use a calculator, really, but I haven't really got a calculator on hand, so we find out that 28 and 4 are factors of 112, and 28 can be further simplified into 7 and 4. Now, we can take 2's from the 4's. So this is the prime factorization of 112, sorry. And we see that we have 2 pairs of 2's. So that means that we rewrite our expression as 4 root 7, because it's 2 times 2 root 7. We take out 1, 2 for every pair. So over here we have our more simplified expression. And now we don't leave our answer as this. What we're going to do is simplify this. So we're going to divide all the terms by negative 4. So we're going to get 2 plus or minus 1 root 7, 2. Now we don't need to worry about putting a negative there because we have the plus or minus symbol. Now we don't need that little 1 over 7. And this is as far as we can simplify it. You can't do it any more because, well, you can't divide root 7 by 2. That wouldn't work out too well. Alright, so our next problem is x squared plus 10x minus 10. So just like the last problem, we just plug in our stuff. So 10 squared minus 4 AC all over 2 times 1. 10 plus or minus. So this comes out to 100 minus 40. And that comes out to 60. Now, we're going to simplify the radical of 60. So if we can take out 15 and 4. And from 15 we can take 5, 3, 2, 2. Which means that we have simplified it to 2 root 15. There's nothing that we can take out of the 15. Because that's just how it is. So we've got 10 plus or minus 2 root 15, 2. And now we're going to divide all the terms by 2. Leave the rational. Like what's inside the rational, you need to keep it that way. So negative 5, and so we got rid of this, so we're good. So it's just negative 5 plus or minus 1 root 15, so negative 5 plus or minus root 15 is our answer. Now before we move on, I want to mention, just be careful of all these negative signs, because as we saw in the last problem, they can often cancel out. We have these two. Now, I show these two to you specifically because I have predetermined that they have essentially whole numbers. Not technically whole numbers, but don't have the weird root thing that we see in these problems. So we can just negative 1 plus or minus the square root, 1 squared minus 4AC all over 2a. Negative 1 plus or minus 1. Oh yeah, make sure that that's a negative 12. So 4 times 24 times 12. So that'd just be 240 plus 48. Right, okay. So what's different about this problem that I particularly wanted to show it to you is that the 289, that's, the square root of 289 is 17, so it's a whole number square root. It's not a decimal where we have to simplify it under the radical. So yeah, what we can do here is distinguish. Draw little arrows, and we are going to do this 2 different ways. Now negative 1 plus 17, this is another issue that a lot of people come up with. I find myself struggling with it a lot. I find myself struggling a lot with it. Basically, you know, if you do get stuck, think of this as 17 minus 1. And we find that these all have a 4, so we can simplify it down to 4/3. Now let's do our second one, 1 minus 17 divided by 12, which is negative 18 over 12. We can all take a 6 out of these, so it becomes negative 3/2. So our 2 answers for x are 4/3 and negative 3/2. Now, ignore that for a second. I'm going to show you another one of these, just so you understand that process, because we haven't been doing that in some of the newer problems. So, just standard quadratic. You know, just standard stuff. This would be 12. So this is 64 plus 121, because this is negative 12 plus negative 11. So let's do this real quick. 180. Sorry. No, this should come out as 132. So it comes out as 196. Okay. Now, negative 8 plus 14 over 6. 6 over 6. 1. This is negative 22 over 6, which simplifies if we divide it by 2 to negative 11 thirds. X equals 1 and negative 11 thirds. Excuse that, what just happened. So, that's the quadratic formula. And to end, I want to give you a recap and some advice. So don't worry about whole numbers. Just the expression, you know. Remember the tune of Pop Goes the Weasel to help you remember the formula. And simplify the expression as much as you can. If you find that the square root goes away because the square root of b squared minus 4ac is a whole number, then you break it down into two solutions and you solve that. You know, remember your little arrows. And then just some general advice for you as a math student. Don't worry about practicing the problems that you can do well, but instead practice the ones you don't know. So, you know, you don't want to waste your time in practicing what you already know, because you already know it. The best use of class time is when your math teacher asks, hey, does anyone need some help on some problems on the homework? Use that time, because that time is really valuable, and the teacher has a right not to give it, I guess, if no one asks for it. Just little things like PEMDAS, fun little ways to help you remember things in math, because for some people math can be pretty difficult. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and this has been the quadratic formula.